Pranams Maharaj, Jai Shri Ram Krishna.
Jai Shri Ram Krishna. Om Namo Narayana. We shall start with the prayer. Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. Namaskar to all of you. Welcome to the discussion on Ramakrishna, the Great Master. In the introduction to the attitude of a sadhaka and incarnation, in the last discussion we saw how Gadadhar as a small child manifested that aspect of Mother, Divine Mother Vishalakshi. Going forward, another event in the life of Sri Ramakrishna bears ample testimony to the fact that since childhood, he ascended to high spiritual planes at times. It happened thus. There lived a family of Suvarna Vanikas, a trading class, originally the traders, Vanikas, in gold. So the people who used to do business in gold were called Suvarna Vanikas. There lived a family of Suvarna Vanikas a little to the southwest of Master's ancestral house in Kamarpukur. That this family of Pines, so Pines or Pines were the people from that family, were very prosperous then, can be known by even now from their brick-built Shiva temple decorated with artistic designs. So by the type of the houses they built, the property, the land, the cattle and other things, by that people could judge they were very rich. They were prosperous can be known even now from their brick built Shiva temple decorated with artistic designs. One or two of the members of this family are still living. So, still living in the sense during the period when this author Shardanandaji Maharaj is writing this book. So, at that time, people from that family were still living who had seen Ramakrishna. It is said by the people of the village that the Pines were very rich then. The house was full of people. They were rich farmers also. Not only they were doing the trade of gold, Suvarna Vanikas, they were also rich farmers having extensive land and a large number of cattle and plows. They had also a decent income from their trade, but the Pines were not rich like the landlords of the village. They belonged to the upper middle class of the society. The master of the Pine family was very religious man. The head of the Pine family was very religious man. He never tried to convert his dwelling house into a brick built one. Though he was very rich, he had a lot of money. He never converted his own house, which was a mud house built of mud. He never tried to convert it into a brick built or a well furnished house, though he was in a position to do so. He had a lot of prosperity, he had a lot of money. He always lived in a two-storied house of mud walls. What were the mud walls constructed then? It would be made out of bamboos, supported by bamboos, wood, straw, and earth, but no bricks. That was how, in olden days, the houses would be built. Even house of Ramakrishna, house of Holy Mother Jairambati, all those things were built in that fashion. Now, this rich man who had a lot of money was the head of the family, the Pine family. He was very religious, and you can see his nature of religiosity or his devotion to God, that he never converted, though he had a lot of money, his own house into a brick one. But on the contrary, he got bricks burnt, employed a good mason, and got the temple of Lord Shiva beautifully built. His name was Rasik Lal. Name of this head of this family, Pine family, was Rasik Lal. He himself never converted his house into a brick one or a better one. But on the contrary, his devotion was so much that instead of doing it to himself, he built a beautiful temple for Lord Shiva with bricks and all the decorations. His name was Rasik Lal. He had no sons but had many daughters. We do not know why all the daughters, although married, always lived in their father's house. We are told that the youngest of them reached her youth when the master was 10 years or 11 years of age. All the daughters were handsome and were devoted to the gods and holy men. They had much affection for this small boy, Gadai, their neighbor. The master spent much of his time in that religious family during his boyhood. And even now, one is told of many Leela, divine sports of the master in the house of the Pines, while in high planes of consciousness. But we heard from the master himself of the great event which we now describe. It seems that the devotees of Vishnu and those of Shiva lived together, lived together at Kamarpukur without bearing any ill will towards each other. Even now, the annual 72-hour singing of the glories of the names of Vishnu is like the Gajan of Shiva, celebrated with great pomp. So both Lord Shiva and Vishnu were equally revered, and they used to celebrate the singing of their glories in that village. The number of Shiva temples, however, was greater than that of the Vishnu. Many of the Suvarna Vanikas were, some of them or many of them were begotten Vaishnavas. You know that begotten means fanatic. Some people were of that nature. You can see them by nature. It is not the religion, but that is their selfish or bad nature. They develop that begotten nature of an fanatic character in them. So whatever they take up, they think that their own God is true. All the other gods are not true. They are demigods and they are not worthy of worship. Their own Ishtadevata is the highest. So they all go on making such false statements and create disturbance in the society. So Ramakrishna later on he used to tell that when we take up only devotion, and if we don't nicely, harmoniously mix gnana, the Gnanapada, which in Bhagavad Gita you can see Lord Krishna is giving in the second chapter, Sankhya Yoga, Gnana Yoga. So that portion of the yoga goes to develop the intellectual side and also the broadness in religious life. Like the worship is done to the Nirakara Nirguna Parabrahma, that aspect of Lord present in all the living beings. Atmaikya Bhava, the same God who is present in your heart is present in everybody's heart. So all these ideas you can see in Gnana Yoga. If you harmoniously combine this Gnana Yoga with Bhakti Yoga, then you will not get this bigotry or you can come out of this fanaticism. Otherwise, just if you go on purely with devotion or bhakti, without this Gnana Mishrita Bhakti, then the tendency, most of them will become fanatic in nature and they will quarrel with others in the name of religion. They will scold, they will criticize other gods and goddesses. They think their own Ishtadevata is true, all the others are demigods and useless. But when you have the Gnanapata, when you know the knowledge that it is the same one God who has taken different forms for the need of the devotees, then people will not commit such mistakes. I have heard one great saint from the Madhva, the dual philosophy, that is the Dvaita philosophy. He was a very great saint. He had gone forward in spiritual life. Though all the other people in his community were very bigoted, but he was something special. He had come to give a talk on the parliament of Hinduism. We used to do a lot of parliament of all religions, but our Swamiji there in Bangalore, revered Harshanandaji Maharaj, he decided we all do parliament of religions. Why don't we do parliament of Hinduism? Our different sects of Hinduism can be brought together and we can compare notes. At that time, from this Dvaita philosophy, Madhva philosophy, this great seer from the Pejavar Mutt had come, Vishweshwatirtha. He was very, very fine sadhu and also very liberal sadhu, very great sadhu. So while he was talking, giving his talk on this Parliament of Hinduism, he told a story. I cannot forget it. This happened maybe some 30 years back. This might have happened some 30 years back. So, but I can't forget that beautiful story which this great seer told. What was that story which that great seer Pejavar Shri told? He gave the example of a wonderful rich man who was an officer and he also owned a drama company. He has a hobby, he used to perform many plays in his company. So he was the owner of a company, as well as he was an official. So he had his wife and children in the house. Father and mother elderly father and mother living in the house. He had also a pet dog. Now, this owner of the house, while he used to go out to the office with his suit and boot, coat and hat, with all that tie, and come back from the office, the dog would go wagging his tail to him and recognize him. Because he was the owner of the company, sometimes he had to play the role of a beggar in rags in his company, in that drama company. So that day he came back to the house in the rags as a beggar. Now, as soon as that beggar entered into the house, the children started screaming. Wife also got afraid and started running away. Father and mother also were afraid to see that beggar in rags and dirt come into their house with his beard, unkempt hair, and other things. They started shrieking that some beggar has entered. But the dog started wagging the tail and going and jumping on him and showing its love. It could recognize that it was his owner. So the dog could easily recognize. It started wagging tail and go. All others, the human beings, were so frightened and they started shouting and shrieking. And another day he had played maybe a Puranic or a mythological role. So he had come in the dress of some Yamadharmaraya or somebody of the mythological role with all his crown, kirita, then gada, that is the mace and so many other things. And again, it was the turn of the family to get threatened and run away from there. But again, the dog sniffed at him and went at him and wagging his tail, showed his love to the owner. Likewise, in whatever way, in whatever dress that owner would come, our family members, his own near and dear ones, father, mother, children, wife, couldn't recognize him. They used to get threatened, they used to get afraid and run away. But here, the dog would recognize him in whatever external appearance used to come. So the seer started telling, it's the same one God who is taking different forms for the sake of his devotees, just to suit the taste of his devotees. The same one God is taking all these different forms. But we human beings are even worse than that dog. The dog can recognize his master in whatever dress or external appearance he may come. It would show its love and affection. But we human beings, if we like Vishnu very much, but if the same Vishnu comes in the form of Shiva to suit the need of the other devotees, then we hate it. We start criticizing that form. Our own God, our own Ishta Devata, it has taken different form, that's all. But we start demeaning, throwing criticisms, and doing all the nonsense. So that seer used to tell, we human beings are even worse than the dog. We cannot recognize our own master, the Lord God, one God, if he takes a different form to suit the needs of other devotees. So that's why we have to know, Ramakrishna used to tell, fanaticism is very bad. And this bigotry is very worst. That will deter, it will hamper your progress in spiritual life. So what is the remedy? The remedy is Gnana Mishrita Bhakti. Or another thing which Ramakrishna used to tell was Naradiya Bhakti. The good harmonious combination of all the yogas, then making bhakti as the important yoga, you have to go forward. That's why you can see Vivekananda giving us the emblem. What is that emblem like? The emblem you can see in the Ramakrishna Mission's emblem, you can see that the snake outside covering, that is the Raja Yoga, representing the Raja Yoga. Then we have the ocean, wavy water, that represents the Karma Yoga. Then we have the lotus and the lotus leaf on the, what do you call that, water, untouched. So that is a Bhakti Yoga. Then we have the rising sun, that is the Gnana Yoga. The sun of knowledge is rising. Then we have the Hamsa Pakshi, the Hamsa or the swan in the center. That indicates the Paramatma Swarupa, Paramatman. So if you combine Samanmaya, it's called, all the yogas properly, because all these yogas are different faculties of our mind. Mind has 4 different aspects: the analytical, the what you call scientific. So for them, the Gnana Yoga suits. Then people have emotional nature. For them, the Bhakti Yoga suits. People are very restless, active. They want to do something. They cannot keep quiet. For them, the Karma Yoga suits. And people are more introspective. They want to study their own mind. So they are more scientific. So for them, it is Raj Yoga. So it is so our own different aspects of our mind to suit that need. These yogas are there. And also different gods and goddesses. The same Lord has taken all these forms only to suit the need, taste, and different evolution of our growth of we spiritual aspirants. We are at different rung of the ladder or steps reaching the goal, that is the highest realization. So God takes different forms. The one same God, the same God takes all these different forms. But we, the peculiarity, we don't know why this fanaticism and bigotry comes into our mind. We start hating other gods and goddesses while we show love to our own Ishtadevata. Though we know that it's the same Ishtadevata has taken all these different forms. So that's why here we can see this village people of, though they were very innocent, not highly educated, but still they revered all gods and goddesses. You have the love, intense love to your Ishtadevata. But there is no need that you should hate other gods and goddesses. So Ramakrishna used to give the example of the wife and the husband relationship. Now in the family, the young wife will look after the father-in-law, the mother-in-law, the brother-in-law, the sister-in-law, and all the people in the joint family with great care, and she will do all the service to them. But she has a special relationship with her husband. So it is just like that. So we should have that intense love towards Ishtadevata, our own personal God, just like that love of the young wife to the husband. But we should not neglect other family members. We have to serve them. In the same way, Ramakrishna used to give this example and tell we should maintain such a beautiful, harmonious service with service, that kindness and service, such relationship with all the other members of the family. Like that, we should also revere all the gods and goddesses, seeing your own Ishtadevata in all of them. So here we get an opportunity to see that only few of the Vaishnavas in Kamarpukur, the Suvarna Vanikas, were bigoted Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas' faith prevailed to a great extent among the people of this class, since Lord Nityananda, that is, who was the close associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nitai. So Nityananda initiated Uddharana Datta and delivered him from worldly bondage. But the pioneers of Kamarpukur were devotees of both Shiva and Vishnu. The aged head of the Pine family used to take the name of Hari, that is Vishnu, thrice a day, as prescribed. You might be knowing what is the meaning of Hari. In Sanskrit, Hari means one who steals all our troubles, or he will attract our heart, steal our heart towards himself. What is the meaning of Hara, the aspect of Shiva? It's the same thing. One who steals away all our difficulty or steals our heart towards him. So that is the same meaning for both. Hari is also the same. Hara is also the same. Shiva means Mangalakari, one who gives auspiciousness. Vishnu means all pervasive. Then if Shiva is Mangalakari, Shambhu or Shankara means Shankaroti iti Shankaraha, the one who causes auspiciousness. If Shiva causes auspiciousness, do you think Vishnu will not do that? If Vishnu is all pervasive, do you think Shiva is not all pervasive? They are one and the same. They are not different. So if you go to this Gnana Marga, if you have the knowledge in detail of this Gnana of God, then you will not become bigoted. See, now I'm giving you so many examples. Now your bigotry and fanaticism will go away. That's why Gnana Mishrita Bhakti, devotion, can be the highest goal of yours, but nicely, harmoniously do the Samanvaya, combination of all the other yogas, then only your development or spiritual progress will be very quick and smooth. So that is the reason Vivekananda used to give the example of the flight of a bird. When the bird has to fly, it should have these four limbs. What are they? The head with the beak is the main thing which will help the bird to fly. Then the other main things which is very, very necessary for the flight is the wings. Without the wings, it cannot fly. Then other than the wings, we see that it needs the legs to take off and to land and to move down on the earth. Then the other important thing is behind we have a feather or the tail of the bird, which acts like a rudder, which will give the direction in the flight. So if all these four limbs are properly utilized by the bird, then the flight of the bird will be proper and smooth. Otherwise, if it doesn't have the tail, it will have no direction. It will be flying in different direction. If it doesn't have the legs, it cannot take off properly or even land properly. If it doesn't have wings, then it cannot fly properly. Then if it doesn't have the head and the beaks, then you cannot even imagine the flight of the bird itself. Likewise, all these four limbs are necessary. So in our life, in our spiritual life, so the combination of all the four yogas are like this, all four limbs, which we have to nicely combine. If you like bhakti very much, devotion, you by nature you are a bhakta, you are more devoted, let us hope, then keep devotion or bhakti as the main organ, that is the head, and all the other yogas can be combined like the wing, the tail, and the leg, and then you will have a smooth flight. Or else, if you are a Gnana Yogi, by nature you want to go through the Gnana Marga, then keep that Gnana Marga as the main thing like the head and combine all the other three with it. So this is the way you can have a smooth flight in spiritual life. So that is very, very important. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and also Swami Vivekananda nicely explained to us about all these things. Now, going forward, let us see. The pines of Kamarpukur were devotees of both Shiva and Vishnu. The aged head of the Pine family used to take the name of Hari thrice a day as prescribed. But at the same time, he had installed Lord Shiva's temple and used to observe the vow of Shivaratri. That is Shivaratri Jagarana, waking up the whole night. That is called Jagarana. Vow of Shivaratri every year. So during Shivaratri, a dramatic performance used to be arranged in that Shiva temple so that it might help devotees keep vigil the whole night, Jagarana. Once, on the occasion of Shivaratri, the usual arrangements for the dramatic performance were made. The troupe belonged to the neighboring village. They were to play a few scenes indicative of Shiva's greatness. The play was to begin about half an hour after dusk. At dusk, it was learned that the boy of the troupe who was to play the role of Lord Shiva was seriously ill. No one else could be found to play that part. The proprietor gave up all hopes and proposed with humility that the performance will be postponed. What was to be done? How could the vigil be kept during the whole night of Shivaratri? The elderly people sat together for consultation. They sent word to the proprietor asking him whether he could conduct the drama that night if a person could be found to play the part of Shiva. A reply came in the affirmative. The village council consulted again as to who might be asked to act as Shiva. Although Gadai was very young at that time, he knew many songs on Lord Shiva. You know, the photographic memory, Shrutidhara. Gadadhar was very sharp in memory or whatever intellect. At that young age, he could memorize anything. So he knew many Shiva songs and dialogues from the dramas, everything from Mahabharata, from Bhagavata Purana, from the Ramayana, everything he knew. So now they consulted amongst themselves, the village council, the elders, as to who might be asked to take the role of Shiva. Although Gadadhar was very young, a small boy, he knew many songs on Shiva and he had the appropriate looks for playing the part. Now we see that Ramakrishna's photograph we see now was taken somewhere during the age of Ramakrishna, something like 48 or 50. So that was the age around 50. So what we see Ramakrishna is on when he had become quite old, and also that beauty of the body had gone away, the face and the body, because of his intense sadhana. He did 12 years of rigorous sadhana, and you know that he never took care of the body at that 12 years. He never slept for 6 years. And whenever mother used to not give him the darshan, we know that he used to fall on the ground, rub his face to the earth and stone, and it would bleed, it would be cut. So the whole body would be bruised. Crying, he used to call on the Lord, to the Divine Mother, to give darshan, to give vision. So you can see how much the body has been used for that sadhana. So he had lots that sheen, the original sheen. But otherwise, Ramakrishna had very beautiful looks. He had a very beautiful face. You know, even after that sadhana, his body was so beautiful. Mother Sharda Devi used to tell that golden colored light used to emit. The skin had a golden tinge. The body of Ramakrishna had a golden tinge. So that light like gold would emit from the body of Sri Ramakrishna. That's what Mother Sharda Devi used to tell. He was wearing one amulet of Mother Kali on his body before, a golden amulet. So when Mother Sharda Devi used to rub oil on his body, she used to tell that she couldn't differentiate between that golden amulet and the skin of Sri Ramakrishna. So the color of Ramakrishna was like that of gold. He had a very beautiful look and he was so beautiful. But because of the sadhana and old age, the photographs now we see is only of the old age. So we cannot see the beauty, the look of Sri Ramakrishna. Then imagine what would be his beauty when he was very young, when he was a very small boy. So he had a beautiful color, very good color, and he had good that brightness, the ojas, the tejas was so beautiful. But now in the photograph, the black and white and the old type of vintage photograph, you cannot understand anything. So, and those photographs were clicked only during when Ramakrishna was around 50. And one more thing, because of sadhana and going forward too much in spiritual life, his skin was become so soft. They used to tell some of the direct disciples who used to touch the feet of Sri Ramakrishna and other people, Ramakrishna's skin was just like butter. It was so soft like butter. The touch by the feel, when they used to touch the feet, they used to feel it. So that's why his skin has become so soft like butter. So Ramakrishna couldn't allow the barber to come and shave his beard or head. So only the barber could clip it. That's why you see Ramakrishna's photograph always with beard and that hair. So you cannot see his clear face at all. That was the reason. But otherwise, Ramakrishna was very handsome and very, very beautiful. And he had that golden color on that body. You may be knowing Mother Gauri or Parvati Durga. She gets the name Gauri, Gaura Varna, the same golden colored, crimson colored body. So she had a beautiful color, the golden color. That's why she is called Gauri. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is called Gauranga. Again, the same reason. Shiva is also called Gauranga, Ardanga. So like that, Ramakrishna also had a very beautiful, very handsome looks. So now the photograph cannot tell it, the black and white photograph, that too very old type of technology. You know that we had seen such cameras in those old age. So the camera would be on the tripod or this thing stand, and very old type of camera. They used to cover it with a big blanket or some black colored cloth, So then they will pull that light, some chemical, and there'll be a flash. And then they used to take the photograph, then they used to take to the lab, in a dark room. They used to develop the negatives. So much difficult process were there of the old type of photograph. We have seen all those things. But let us not worry about that. So we cannot comprehend, we cannot grasp the beauty in those photographs, which was taken only in the later age when Ramakrishna was quite old. So now I explained all these things to tell because Gadai was very young and he had appropriate looks for playing that part. He was very, very handsome and beautiful. And also he had a good voice, he could sing very well, his memory was sharp. So it was settled that he should be requested. He's the right person to play this part. He was something to the age of 7 or 8, that's all. Or at the most 10 years old. So he had appropriate looks for playing that part. So it was settled that he should be requested. As regards the speaking of a few words while playing the part, it would be managed by the proprietor somehow. Gadadhar was approached, and when he saw that all were eager, he agreed. The play, as arranged, began about half an hour before nightfall. Dharmadas Laha, the landlord of the village, was a great friend of the master's father. So his eldest son, Gaya Vishnu. Gaya Vishnu was very great devotee. He had progressed much in spiritual life. He could easily see that Gaya Vishnu could see this son of this great Dharmadas Laha. He could understand that this Gadadhar was none other than Lord Vishnu taken the birth. So he used to take him to the woods there, isolated place, and he used to worship him like God. He used to worship just like Narayana or Vishnu. He used to do the worship Gaya Vishnu. He used to worship Ramakrishna, Gadadhar, that small boy. So when Gaya Vishnu came to know that his friend would act as Shiva, he and his companions began to dress him accordingly. They started dressing Ramakrishna with that looks of Shiva. The master put on the dress of Shiva, sat in the green room, and was thinking of Shiva. Now, the modern day actors, they don't have this feeling, the thought of Shiva, the meditation on Shiva. In olden days, we have seen the actors used to be very, very pure. They used to lead a very religious life. So they used to do a lot of vows before acting that role of the part of that great gods and goddesses. They used to be very pure. So likewise, you can see now Gadadhar, who is playing the part, now he has been dressed as Lord Shiva in the green room. He's sitting there. Master was put on the dress of Shiva, sat in the green room, and now he's meditating, thinking of Lord Shiva. When he was called to appear on the stage, one of his friends came to lead him there. Called by his friend, the master rose in a state of mental abstraction because now he was thinking of Lord Shiva all through. His mind got merged in Lord Shiva. The thought of Shiva had become so intense. We have told earlier too in many places. What is that? When you realize, when you think, Brahmavit Brahmaiva Bhavati. The person who has realized God, the person who has understood God, he becomes God himself. Brahmavit, the knower of Brahman, the knower of God becomes God himself. That is the statement of the scriptures. So now constantly thinking, meditating, and become merged in the thought of Shiva. Now Gadadhar, that small child, had completely become Shiva himself. So one of his friends came to lead him there, called by his name. The master rose by his friend. The master rose in a state of mental abstraction and without looking in any direction, approached the stage with sedate and slow steps and stood there motionless. Now just imagine, you should go back a little. Who was Gadadhar? He got the name Gadadhar because he was born from the Gaya Vishnu. He is the avatar of Gaya Vishnu. Now just imagine Lord Vishnu putting the role of the dress of Lord Shiva. So that is the reality. That's the one Lord who is putting this role of different parts of forms of gods and goddesses. It's one God. So now you can imagine Vishnu playing the role of Lord Shiva. So that's now you can see there in the drama. Then that Vishnu has become one with Shiva. No difference. The master rose in a state of mental abstraction and without looking in any direction, approached the stage with sedate and slow steps and stood there motionless. The audience felt a vague, indescribable, divine emotion. Can you imagine all the audience? They were so lucky. They were maybe devatas in their older life, in their earlier life. Due to great merits, they had got this opportunity to come there to see Lord Vishnu in the dress of Shiva. So just imagine when they saw such a beautiful scene there, the audience felt a vague, indescribable divine emotion and were filled with joy and wonder when they saw the master, that is Gadadhar, that young Gadadhar, in that dress, bedecked with ashes and matted hair, as Shiva does. You will be always having that ashes covered with his body to show this world is unreal. That is why Lord Shiva always he lives in the graveyard, Smashanavasi, and he covers the whole body with the ashes of this graveyard. So even now, if you go to Ujjain Mahakaleshwar temple, every day early in the morning there is one arati called Bhasma Arati. Even now, if you go to Ujjain, you can see that there the people or the sadhus or the priests, they go to the graveyard, they collect the ashes fresh from the graveyard, and that ashes will be preserved from the cremation ground, and they will keep it in a very thin cloth, porous cloth. And in the morning, early morning, 1:30 or 2 o'clock, or even at that early period, we can see, I have seen that arati myself. The sadhus will bring that and they will do that arati abhisheka of bhasma from the graveyard, from the cremation ground, on the Shivalingam, the Jyotirlinga, Ujjain. Every day this is done, even now. So that's called Bhasmarati. If you go to Ujjain, that Mahakaleshwar temple, you can see that even now. So now Shiva is covering that his whole body with that ashes. Here, Ramakrishna is also dressed like that. They saw the master in the dress bedecked with ashes and matted hair. Why is Lord Shiva having matted hair? Because he always sits in meditation for thousands of years. Where is the time to trim the hair and to dress the hair with oil and keep it kempt? So he doesn't care for it. So the dust and the other things join together to make, without oil, the hair will be always matted. That is why the Shiva's hair is always matted. Jatadhari, Jata, Juta, Chandra, Mukuta. So the Lord's Shiva's, he was bedecked with ashes and matted hair, calm and dignified in gait and fixed and motionless in posture. They felt particularly charmed to witness that heavenly, indrawn and fixed gaze and that gentle smile on his lips, as the villagers are wont to do. They suddenly cried out the name of Hari. Now, can you imagine? Now they are shouting Hari Bol, Hari Bol. They are shiving Shiva. They are having, because the Shiva is wearing, the Lord Vishnu is wearing the dress of Shiva, and the villagers were Vaishnavas, and they started taking the name of Hari when they saw Hara. So no difference between Hari and Hara. They could feel that, the villagers there. So they started taking the name of Hari. Hari Bol, tell the name of Hari, tell the name of Hari. As the villagers are wont to do, they suddenly cried out the name of Hari. Some of the women uttered the auspicious sound of the Ulu. In Bengal, Orissa, Assam, and that area, there is called Ulunada, Uludhvani. That is the auspicious Mangalakari Dwani. Especially the ladies will do when during the time of religious this thing, just like the men blow the conch, the bell, the ladies together at a high pitch, they make this Uludhvani. In Africa also we can see that is not done for religious purpose, but in India, it is a Mangalakari, especially the devotees of Divine Mother Kali, they do that sound. Ulunada, ulu, 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 in that fashion at a high pitch. They all make that with one pitch. You can hear that it will be very, very special to hear. You will get goosebumps if you hear that. So I was not exposed to that. So when I went to Durga Puja to Belur Math as a brahmachari in 92, so during that Kumari Puja and Durga Puja, suddenly thousands and thousands, maybe there were some 40 or 50,000 people had gathered. So out of that, maybe majority were only women. So some 20,000 ladies were there. They all started making that ulunada at once. I had never heard that in my life, and suddenly what would be my condition? During that Durga Puja, special occasion like Sandhi Puja and other times, Kumari Puja, they will make that sound when the Arati is going on. First, I got afraid. Then, after that, goosebumps started, Romanchana. That for the Divine Mother, to please the Divine Mother, they will do that Ulunada, Ulu 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 Nada. The mothers, especially, the ladies will do that. So now, here, when they saw, the men started telling, Haribol, Haribol. But the women, the mothers there started making the uludhvani, ulunada. So it created a special atmosphere. As the villages are owned to do, they suddenly cried out the name of Hari. Some of the women uttered the auspicious sound of the ulu and some blew conch bells. Afterwards, in order to restore order in the audience, the proprietor began reciting hymns to Shiva even before the noise subsided. Now, when they become emotional, you see there was lot of noise. They saw that Shiva, Lord Shiva Sakshat, live Shiva, Vishnu in the form of Shiva, Shiva, Vishnu together. So Harihareshwara, we have a special temple. Our concept in Hinduism is so great. So that concept is they are not separate. Half the body is Lord Shiva, half the body is Lord Vishnu. That is called Harihareshwara. If you go to Karnataka, if you go from Bangalore about 200 kilometers, there is a name on the bank of Tungabhadra. It's called Harihareshwara. The name of the place also is called Harihar. So their beautiful temple is there of Lord Hari and Lord Shiva together, Harihareshwara. So now you can see inside, just like now the computer people tell, Intel inside. So the computer company called Intel, they tell Intel inside. Likewise, Lord Vishnu inside and Lord Shiva outside. Harihara in a different way you could see here. So seeing that, the villagers got excited and they started making that noise. When you get too much excited in joy, you cannot know what you are doing. You will make boisterous sounds. So they felt particularly charmed to witness that heavenly, indrawn, fixed gaze and the gentle smile on the lips of Gadadhar. As the villagers are wont to do, they suddenly cried out the name of Hari. Some of the women uttered the auspicious sound of the ulu, and some blew conch shells. Afterwards, in order to restore order in the audience, the proprietor began reciting hymns to Shiva even before the noise subsided. Although the audience became a little calm, they still gesticulated and nudged one another, whispering in low tones, Bravo, bravo, how beautiful Gadai looks. We never thought the lad would act the part of Shiva so well. It will be very good if we can secure the boy. We can secure the boy somehow and form a yatra, that is the drama troupe of our own. But Gadadhar was all the while standing in that same posture, not one single moment, because he's completely merged in the thought of Shiva and he's become one with Shiva. So no moment at all. Gadadhar was all the while standing in that same posture. Moreover, incessant streams of tears, incessant stream of tears, not one or two drops. It is flowing like Ganga and Yamuna from the eyes. See, when you have we get tears when we are in pain and sorrowful, when we have our ego crushed, when we are helpless, so that we have the tears of pain. So the tears of pain flow in the inner part of the eyes like this, from the inner edge. The tears of joy flows at the outer edge. Outer edge of the eyes, the tears of joy flow. So now the boy because he's having exuberance of joy in identification with Lord Shiva. So he's having that samadhi, he's merged in Shiva, he's having the vision of Shiva inside, outside, everything. Gadadhar was all the while standing in the same posture, moreover, incessant streams of tears, that is, the tears of joy, was flowing down his cheeks, sometimes passed this way, but Gadadhar could not speak or move. Then the proprietor and the one or two elderly men of the village went to the boy and saw that his hands and feet were insensitive, no sensation of the external world. The hands and feet of the boy were insensitive, and that had no external consciousness at all. The noise then doubled. Some cried out, "Water, water, sprinkle water over his eyes and face." Some said, fan him, fan him." Some others, "An ecstatic influence of Shiva must have come on him. Utter the name of Lord Shiva." And still other murmured, "The boy has spoiled the whole amusement. Today no Shivaratri." It's certain that the call cannot continue now. At last the audience dispersed. When the boy could not be brought to outer consciousness by any means, some people carried Gadadhar home on their shoulders. That ecstasy, we are told, did not come to an end. That whole night, in spite of much effort, and there was much agitation in the house, he regained normal consciousness, normal state, the next day after sunrise. So that is true Shivaratri. On the day of Shivaratri, the whole day we have to think of Shiva. The whole day we have to fast, Nirjala Upavasa, not even a single drop of water. Then the whole night we should be awake, thinking of Lord Shiva, meditating, singing the bhajans. And the next day also we are not supposed to take anything. So next to sunrise, we have to break that vow. And now exactly Ramakrishna has done real Shivaratri, is immersed in the thought of Shiva, and he got normal consciousness only the next day after sunrise. Some say that he was in that ecstatic state continuously for 3 days. So real Shivaratri has been celebrated. That is the way. That is the real Shivaratri which we have to celebrate, completely immersed in the thought of Lord Shiva. Nowadays we can see people roam about here and there on Shivaratri. The whole night they will be roaming, chatting, chit-chatting, playing cards and playing other things, some games, and putting on some movies and orchestra and dancing. And that is not the way to celebrate Shivaratri. Real Shivaratri has to be celebrated with the thought and immersed in the Lord thought of Shiva. And here Gadadhar, that young boy, has showed us what is real Shivaratri. So now we will stop this introduction here of the sadhaka's life, and we will go to the exact life of Sri Ramakrishna. So we had a Shivaratri, another Shivaratri today, though Shivaratri comes in February. But because of Ramakrishna and this life today, we had another Shivaratri. It is really a memorable thing to see Lord Vishnu having the form of Shiva, internal Vishnu, external Shiva, external Vishnu, internal Shiva, it's the same thing. So we had a wonderful, beautiful vision of Lord Shiva, and Shivaratri is really celebrated today in that thought of Lord Shiva. Now coming to the proper life of Sri Ramakrishna, where we are going through the chapter, the first 4 years of sadhana. Now, in the last discussion, we were seeing Master got the culmination of the Dasya Bhava. He was practicing sadhana to realize Lord Ramachandra. He had taken up the Dasya Bhava, now putting himself like that of Hanuman, the epitome of Dasya Bhava. He got the vision of Mother Sita. We enjoyed that, all that beautiful thing, and Mother Sita merged in the body of Sri Ramakrishna. giving the gift of her smile. Sita, whose life from the start was a bundle of suffering, Ramakrishna, after that vision, after that merging of Mother Sita in his body, used to tell, I have been suffering like Sita all my life, perhaps because my first vision with the naked eye was of Mother Sita. Sri Sita, the author, Shardanandaji Maharaj said to some, including the translator Jagadanandaji into English, made a gift. Mother Sita made a gift of her smile to the master. So those who saw the master's smile, that's why I'm telling the beauty of master's face, the handsomeness of the master face was immense. With this photograph, whatever we see now, we can't understand that. But here the author is describing. So those who saw the master Ramakrishna smile knew how Mother Sita smiled. So Mother Sita had gifted that smile of hers to Sri Ramakrishna. So if you want to see Mother Sita's smile, you can see the smile of Ramakrishna, and then you feel. So you can see that Mother Sita's face internally with your Gnana Chakshu, the divine eye. Now, continuing, so in this sadhana, Sri Ramakrishna, feeling the need for a suitable sacred place for practicing austerities, the master expressed to Hriday a desire to plant a new Panchavati. There was already a Panchavati. I have explained you earlier. In some of the Puranas, it is given. That is the Skanda Purana. What is this Panchavati? Vata means tree. Pancha means 5. So in the Skanda Purana, there are so many 18 important Puranas. Other than the 18 important Puranas, there may be so many sub-Puranas also. But amongst these 18 important Puranas, Skanda Purana is also one. In that Skanda Purana, it is given the holy fig tree. What is this holy fig? Both the banyan tree and the peepal tree, Ashwattha Vriksha and Vata Vriksha, both are belonging to the same fig tree, fig family. So here, holy fig tree means the banyan tree. All of you know as Indians what is banyan tree. It's called Vata Vriksha in Sanskrit, Vata. The holy fig tree, the Bilva tree, another tree of the Panchavati is Bilva, Bilva Vriksha, which is a very sacred tree for Shiva. Shiva likes Bilva leaves always, and even Divine Mother Lakshmi will be holding the fruit of Bilva. She too likes Bilva. Divine Mother Durga always resides in Bilva tree. So she also likes Bilva. So you can see Bilva is very, very sacred. So the Bilva tree is another in the Panchavati, and Amalaki tree. I have told you what the speciality of Amalaki in the last class. It has very high health value. They give this Amalaka fruit. Amalaka is translated into English as Indian gooseberry. But in the Western countries here, gooseberry is a different fruit. You should not get confused with that fruit. I have seen that fruit. That is not Indian gooseberry, the Amalaka. That's why the Amalaka will be the better place. If you Google it, Amalaka, then you can see the photo. Indians can know that you know Amalaka. You have the pickles, you eat the triple churna and so many other things in Ayurveda. Amalaka, they make morabba also from Amalaka. So you have seen it. If you eat that, if you keep that in your hand, everything is visible like transparent. Even the inner nerves like thing, everything will be visible. That's why in Sanskrit they tell if something is very, very clear, they use the term called Hastamalaka. If you keep a Amalaka fruit in your hand, palm, it is so clear, everything will be seen inside and outside, everything in the Amalaka. That's why if something is very, very clear, they use the term Hastamalaka. That is the term used. So now this Amalaka tree has special gift to give you health, lot of vitamin C, lot of many other vitamins. They to increase the longevity and other things, they eat this, making it a different rasayana. The Ayurvedic people know that. And if you inhale the air given out by this, though all the tree gives out oxygen, they also give out some special other things, chemicals. If inhaled, the result will be different. What is the result from this Amalaka tree? It gives out the special chemicals, including oxygen and moisture. So if you inhale that, your memory power increases. So that's the specialty of Amalaka. Then the banyan tree, the holy fig tree is maybe Ashwatha, then the banyan tree, Vatavriksha, and the Ashoka tree. So some people confuse Ashoka tree with some special nowadays some for some what you call show and other things external. We put some tree which looks like Ashoka, but that is not Ashoka. If you want to know, see what is real Ashoka. You may be knowing Mother Sita Mata was imprisoned in the Ashoka Vana in Sri Lanka. So that has high Ayurvedic value. So that Ashoka tree, it's not the tree we put near the compounds. It goes very tall. The leaf is like Ashoka, but that is not Ashoka tree. So that's a special Ashoka tree. So these 5 together, when you plant them in a circle, the center should be the same. So in different direction, the holy fig tree, Ashwatha Vriksha in the east, then the Bilva in the north, like that in particular direction, the Purana tells. If you collectively put them in that direction in the same circle, and in the center, the meditation asana or the pit, sorry, not the pit, the stage, the center thing is to be preserved for meditation. You can build a kutir from the or a hut thatched roof, or just a stone, or from the mud you can make a stage like thing and sit in meditation. This is the concept of Panchavati. So the holy fig tree, Bilva tree, Amalaka tree, banyan tree, and the Ashoka tree collectively is called Panchavati, should be planted in 5 directions for the purpose of practicing austerity sadhana. The holy fig tree should be planted to the east, Ashwatha to the east. The Bilva tree should be planted towards the north, and the banyan tree, Vatavriksha, should be planted towards the western direction. The Amalaka tree is to the south direction, and the Ashoka Vriksha to the southeast direction. And a beautiful altar, 4 cubits square and attractive to the mind, should be made in the middle center, making the circle of the center of the circle should be a place should be made, a beautiful altar, 4 cubits square for sitting and meditating. So this is given, this is taken, quoted from Skanda Purana. It is given in Skanda Purana. To go to Skanda Purana and ask for Panchavati, you can get it. So Ramakrishna, feeling the need for a suitable sacred place for practicing austerity, the master expressed to Hriday a desire to plant a new Panchavati, a cluster of 5 holy trees. Explaining the reason for it, Hriday said, the small pond called the duck pond near the Panchavati, that is the earlier Panchavati, was then re-excavated, and the piece of land near old Panchavati was filled with the mud from that pond and made level. Also the Amalaka tree under which the master used to meditate before was destroyed. So the master then planted with his own hands a holy fig tree to the west of the place, that is Ashwatha Vriksha. Ramakrishna himself planted it where the sadhana hut now stands, and made Hriday plant the saplings of banyan tree and Ashoka tree, a Bilva tree and an Amalaka tree, and planting saplings of the holy basil and Aparajita creepers. These are the different flower giving creepers. A planting sapling of holy basil is Tulasi. He planted Tulasi also. Tulasi is also very sacred and very good for health, and also has a lot of religious value. So Tulasi grove also was made here by Ramakrishna, and also he planted the creeper of which gives a very beautiful lot of flowers for worship. That is Aparajita creepers. He had the whole place hedged with the help of a temple gardener named Bhartabari, in the wonderful way described elsewhere. The holy basil, that is Tulasi plants, and the Aparajita creepers grew up so high and dense in a short time on account of master's regular watering. So now you can see another master degree. Now we are studying master's life and how much mastery he had. We think that master is not educated, literacy he doesn't have. Now you can see another master degree of Sri Ramakrishna. He was master in gardening. He was expert in gardening. So we saw he was expert in sculpting, he was expert in storytelling, then expert in mimicry, he was expert in singing, he was expert in so many things. Now another master degree is he was expert in gardening too. So master degree in gardening. So you can note all these things, masteries of Sri Ramakrishna. As I told you, I give one lecture in many places on 2 hours. That is education of Sri Ramakrishna. I include all these things. So the holy basil plants and Aparajita creepers grew up so high and dense in a short time on account of master's regular watering and care that no one from outside could see him when he sat for meditation within the enclosure. So not only the Panchavati, he had also planted the Tulsi grove. So everywhere Tulsi plant is covering. So it had grown so high, the Tulsi, that grove, that nobody could see when he sat there in meditation. After Rani Rasamani is consecrated, the Kali temple, pilgrims such as the monks, desires of visiting Puri, because that is the way to go for the pilgrims from North India and other places towards Puri Jagannatha, which is one of the Char Dhams. We think, we have the idea that Char Dham means we have to go to Himalaya. So that is Gangotri, Yamunotri, Kedarnath, Badrinath, that is called Char Dham. But in reality, Char Dham of our olden thing is this Puri Jagannatha, Dwarkanatha, then Kedarnatha in Himalaya, and another place that is Kashi. So these are the Char Dhams, real Char Dhams. So Puri Jagannatha was also very, very important place. Recently, I think you have seen all the Rath Yatra and other things done there. And you should be knowing what is kept inside those 3 dolls. It is not regular images. So they tell after Krishna giving up his body in Dwaraka, in Prabhas, near Dwaraka, from 6 or 7 kilometers from Dwarakanath, about a place is called Prabhas. Krishna was playing the flute and sleep in the reclining posture, and he gave up his body there, Prabhas. That place is still maintained. So after his body was cremated, Krishna's body, that Muladhara, or that what do you call navel, that part that remains, it doesn't get burnt. They release it into the Ganga or something. They keep it in the pot and release it. So that portion, the Nabi, after burning, that relics of Sri Krishna has been preserved, and that is kept in this Puri Jagannatha. Once in 12 years, they change that wooden images every time. And when they are changing, the priests, they go blindfold themselves and take that relics of Lord Krishna and they change it into another new Kalebara. It's called Kalebara. So this happens in Puri Jagannatha. So why is Puri Jagannatha so great? Because the relics of Lord Krishna has been preserved in that temple. That's why that place is so sacred. And the Anna Prasada of Jagannatha, they do the Anna Naivedya to Jagannatha, and after that they dry it in the sun, and the dried rice is given to devotees as prasad. You can keep it for years together and eat it every day. It is very, very sacred. Ramakrishna used to like it, and Ramakrishna used to tell, if Parabrahma Swarupa expresses himself, manifests himself in the form of Anna, it is Puri Jagannatha Anna, rice. And Vivekananda, in the beginning, he was very Gnanamargi. He used to not like the forms and other things, no bhakti, devotion. So to increase devotion, stealthily, Ramakrishna used to hide this Puri Jagannatha Prasada into the sweets and other things and give Narendra to eat it, so that his mind also will get devotion, not only the Gnana Marga. So eating that Puri Jagannatha, you will get devotion too. So Ramakrishna used to take that rice, that is Puri Jagannatha, every day. So I have seen our Sharda Prabhananda in Phoenix. So you will feed every week so many people, thousands of people, poor people. So the cooking will be done in the ashrama. So at that time, he will put that Puri Jagannatha Prasada and Ganga, so that the whole food will become sacred and the people eat it will get a pure mind. So the Puri Jagannatha Prasada is very sacred. That's why. Why? Because that in that they preserve the relics of Krishna. After Rani Rasamani consecrated the Kali temple, pilgrims such as monks, desires of visiting Puri, because it is on the way, And Ganga Sagar, another sacred place is, I've told you, Ganga meets the ocean. That is the place where the Kapila Ashrama was, and all the 60,000 sons of Sagara were burnt to ashes there, and they didn't get mukti. So Bhagirath did tapasya to bring all these ancestors to give them liberation, and Ganga flowed on their ashes. That is near that Ganga Sagar, and they got liberation. So that place is also a place of pilgrimage. On Makara Sankranti, during this period, there will be a big fair in this place, Ganga Sagar Fair. So people, monks also go to that place to take bath in that sea, meeting confluence of Ganga with sea. That is a very sacred place. It is 120 kilometers from Calcutta. So people, monks and pilgrims, desires of visiting Puri and this Ganga Sagar began to accept the hospitality afforded by devout Rani Rasamani. So Rani Rasamani had made arrangement here. Pilgrims, sadhus, monks who are going on pilgrimage to this Puri Jagannatha and to other different places, like not only that Puri Jagannatha, they used to go to this Ganga Sagar too. So when these people used to go to these places, the Ganga Sagar and Jagannath, the monks were made facility. All the facilities were given for them to stay here. They could take food, bhiksha. They would be given groceries if they wanted to cook. And also they would be given vessels like water pot and many other things, whatever they wanted. And so many monks all over from the country who were going to Ganga Sagar and Puri Jagannatha, they knew all the facilities were given in this Rani Rasamani's Kali temple. So all of those monks used to visit, and they had the opportunity now to meet Sri Ramakrishna. All these monks, all these great sadhakas, all these pilgrims, all these great devotees who were really sincere, they could meet Sri Ramakrishna and got lot of spiritual benefits. Other than that, these monks and other pilgrims, they were adepts, expert in so many field of theirs. So Ramakrishna also learnt lot of things from these sadhus monks because he had that photographic memory. I told you he was a Shrutidhara. Once heard, he would never forget. So all that vidyas, all those mantras, so many varieties of things, knowledge Ramakrishna gained. So that's how you can see the education of Sri Ramakrishna, the masteries over so many things. So like that, when many monks used to come, they were experts in alchemy. You know alchemy? Alchemistry. Alchemistry means in olden days, that is the way that chemistry and other things came up. So they wanted to make a thing touching which every other baser metal would be converted into gold. So they wanted to convert everything, the baser metal, into gold. They succeeded. That is called alchemy. So that knowledge of alchemy also Ramakrishna learned from some of the monks. So Ramakrishna knew this method of alchemistry. He had the knowledge of alchemistry too. That's how the word Sparshamani or Parsha comes from that. So with that alchemistry, they can make this Sparshamani. And if you touch that Sparshamani to anything, it will be converted into gold. So Ramakrishna had that knowledge of alchemy also. So now you can see how Ramakrishna would meet these monks, these pilgrims, and not only he taught them spirituality and to progress in their paths, he would also get so many things from them too. So Dakshineshwar temple became a very hospitable place for these sadhus. So all the monks, pilgrims who were going to Puri and Ganga Sagar began to accept the hospitality afforded by devout Rani Rasamani, and they used to rest for a few days at the Dakshineshwar temple when going to and returning from these two places of pilgrimages. The master said that many perfected souls means who had realized God, those who had reached the end in one particular path. So they were perfected souls. And great sadhakas, those who had got much forward in the spiritual life, great sadhakas used to come there from time to time. Instructed by one of them, he seems, that is Ramakrishna seems to have practiced at this time pranayama. Ramakrishna also learned pranayama, hatha yoga. Ramakrishna, now I told you the master degree of Sri Ramakrishna education. Ramakrishna was adept in pranayama. Ramakrishna was expert in hatha yoga. What we learn, all the yogas, we celebrate the yoga day. Ramakrishna had learnt lot of yogasanas and he could do, and he even reached the end of that Hatha Yoga that is called Jada Samadhi. He was adept in pranayama also. So once a monk came, the master said that many perfected souls and great sadhakas used to come there. From that time, instructed by one of them, he seems to have practiced at this time pranayama, pranasya ayamaha, and other exercises of Hatha Yoga. One day, while he was describing to us the following incident regarding Haladhari, we know that his cousin, brother, a little elder to him, maybe 1 or 2 years, he was adept in lot of scriptures like Bhagavata, Bhagavad Gita, and Adhyatma Ramayana. Used to sit there. So he would not do the worship of Mother Kali properly because he didn't like the Bali sacrifice. So once Divine Mother came and instructed him angrily, get away from here, do not do my puja with this half-mindedness, then I will punish you. We all learned. So that is this Haladhari. So now this Haladhari, one day, while Ramakrishna was describing to us the following incident regarding Haladhari, he hinted at it. He forbade us later to practice Hatha Yoga exercises because he himself practiced them and knew their results. Approached by some of us for instruction on it, he said to us, these practices are not for this age, Kali Yuga. Living beings are short-lived and their lives depend on the food in the Kali Yuga, that is Annagata Prana. Where is the time in this age to practice Raja Yoga? In the other words, to call on God after making the body firm by the practice of Hatha Yoga? Again, if one wants to practice those exercises, one has to live constantly with the teacher, perfect in that yoga, and follow for a long time very hard rules regarding food, rest, exercises, etc., according to his instructions. The slightest deviation from these rules produces diseases in the sadhaka's body and on many occasions causes even his death. Therefore, it is not necessary to practice these things. Besides, it is not for the purpose of restraining. Is it not for the purpose of restraining the mind that one has to restrain the vital air by practicing pranayama, etc.? You will see that both the mind and the vital forces will themselves be gradually restrained by meditation and devotion to God. Human beings have short lives and possess little capacity in this Kali Yuga. That is why the Divine Lord has graciously made their path to realization so easy to treat. In this age, if the feelings of anguish and void, like those felt at the death of one's wife or son, are felt for God, and these persist even for 24 hours in one's mind, he is bound to reveal himself to that person. So now I will again repeat this very, very important thing. You might have read this many times. You might have noticed this many times, but you have not understood the import. So I'm going to read this again and make it clear. In this age, that is Kali Yuga, if the feelings of anguish, vyakulata, your anguish and void, like those felt at the death of one's wife or husband or son, are felt for God, if you feel the same void and restlessness, if you feel the same sorrow that you have not got the realization of God, the anguish and void, like those felt at the death of one's wife or son, are felt for God. And if this condition, that anguish for God, realizing God, that void to realize God is felt, persists even for 24 hours in one's mind, you will get the vision of God. You will realize God. He is bound to reveal himself to that person. So this is very, very important statement of Sri Ramakrishna, that you can get the vision of the Lord. You can immediately get the vision. It's not so easy. If you cry, give up your food, give up everything, rest, void, anguish, how do you feel? When suppose this is imagination, do not worry that I'm telling something like that. A very near or dear one, either your wife or husband or a child passes away, then how do you feel for them? So that anguish, that feeling, that void, you can't take food, You will not take bath. You will not take rest. You will not do anything. You will just cry and cry and cry for them. Like that feeling of void, that feeling of anguish, if you can feel, and if that state persists for 24 hours, you have to continuously cry and feel without food and rest for God, 24 hours, then God is bound to reveal himself. He will give you darshan. One day, 24 hours continuously, if you cry for God, you will get realization of God. That is the statement done by Sri Ramakrishna. Many sadhus have shown it. I've also given the example. I will just give you one example from the life of one disciple of Holy Mother, and we will close our discussion today because we are approaching the time, 8 o'clock. What is that beautiful example? If I am right, if that Swami, maybe name of that Swami is Shantanandaji Maharaj. So he was a disciple of Holy Mother. So he was living somewhere in Kashi, in that area. Now the present day sadhu, he is 96 or 90 years old. He is in Sydney. I had gone last year to see him, just to touch his feet. Great soul. Swami Sridharanandaji Maharaj. His earlier name was Salil Maharaj. He's still living in Sydney. I had just gone last year to see him. I had so many other things to collect funds for our temple, new temple in this place, that is Johannesburg. That was also one of the reasons, but the main reason was to see this great sadhu. So he used to come to Bangalore frequently for building of the temple in Lucknow. So then he used to stay in Bangalore. I was looking after the kitchen and I used to take food and serve him. He used to come late sometimes after the work. So I used to go and serve him. So then, now and then, when it would be late night, Sridharanandaji Maharaj would be talking and telling about spiritual things, reminiscences. So when I persisted that he should tell something about Holy Mother, he told me many incidents. I will just tell one of them. So he was then brahmachari. He had joined in somewhere in North India near Kashi and other place. So this very old disciple of Holy Mother, Shantanandaji, if I'm right, the name may be Shantanandaji. I may be also mistaken. The name sometimes we tend to forget, but I think it is Shantanandaji. So he was living there in that place and he had developed tuberculosis. So the doctors had diagnosed that he had got tuberculosis. So in those days, there was no medicine. It was worse than this coronavirus. People used to die and it was to spread something like that. Coronavirus at least is not so deadly. That was very deadly. Once it comes, they're gone. So there was no medicine and it would quickly spread just like this through the air or through the, the talking, the spit, and also through the breathing. So people would not go near those patients because there was no cure. Death was sure once it comes, tuberculosis. So now all the other sadhus were not going to him, going to serve him. They used to give him food and all the other facilities, but far off. But now seeing that pathetic condition of the Holy Mother, this brahmachari, Salil Maharaj, later on who became Swami Sridharanandaji Maharaj. So now he was so much troubled to see the child of Holy Mother being neglected like this. So he thought, let me contract tuberculosis and die. I don't bother. I will go and serve him in a very dear and near way. So, but the head of the center warned him, I can't give you special time to go and serve that disciple of Holy Mother. You should do whenever you have free time because you have so many other work to do. You have to do a lot of work of the ashram. So Sridharanandaji, then a brahmachari, Salil Maharaj, maybe he was 21 or 25 years old. He agreed. So he started going to that Swami and serving him. And the head of the center had warned him that while going to serve him, you should make him feel that he doesn't have tuberculosis. You should not tell that Swami has contracted tuberculosis because that might put him into depression or something like that. Then he will start worrying and he may give up the body. So you should not tell him that he has contracted tuberculosis. So agreed to all the condition. He used to go during his japa time. Whenever he was supposed to do meditation morning and evening, that was the only free time he had. Other times he had to work a lot. So he used to go during this japa time or meditation time. So he used to serve the Swami very closely. He used to wash his clothes, he used to feed him, he used to do all the things. So since he was in close contact serving him, this Swami or this Brahmachari Salil Maharaj, the next future Sridharanandaji Maharaj, he contacted tuberculosis himself. So he got all the what you call symptoms, losing weight, fever, and all other things. Now this Swami, that is Shantanandaji Maharaj, one for checkup and other things, he was supposed to be taken to the Lucknow, nearby the Lucknow tuberculosis sanatorium. So when he was going by the car, when he saw the board, TB sanatorium, tuberculosis sanatorium, and after the doctor saw, tested, and gave the prescription, other medicine, and came back, suddenly he asked the people, "Why have you brought me to this tuberculosis sanatorium?" Then the doctor there, we didn't know anything what the head of the center has told. He told him that you have contracted tuberculosis, that's why you are brought here for checkup and other treatment. Then the Swami became very morose. He became very sad and his face became very pale. He came back to the ashrama, went to the room, closed the door, and people could hear only wailing and crying for 3 days. He gave up food, he gave up sleep for 3 days, no sleep, no food. He was crying and crying. The sound could be heard from within. Then this brahmachari is going to serve him, but he can't go inside because it is locked. Salil Maharaj thought, what is this? He's such an old disciple of Sharda Devi. They tell that he has done a lot of sadhana, he used to do a lot of japa, and he has a lot of spiritual progress. He has realized God. And what is happening? He is crying for life. He is afraid for life. He is afraid of death, even after so much of progress in spiritual life. So all these thoughts, skeptical thoughts, started coming to this brahmachari. It's but natural. So the third day, that Swami, no food, no sleep, just crying, opened the door. His face was beaming with joy. It was full of light. Then he came out. Then this brahmachari went to serve him, talked to him. Then he was a little open. He is fearless. Even now the Swami is like that. He was fearless. He directly asked the Swami, what is this, Maharaj? I thought you were a great soul and you were crying for your life, death. The moment you heard about tuberculosis, that you will be dying, so you started crying. Then do you know what was the reply of that Swami? Shantanandaji Maharaj, disciple of Holy Mother, told, my dear mad boy, it's not because of my life, for the fear of my life, or because of the fear of death that I cried. I cried because I know 100% that you are serving me, the child, you small brahmachari, you are serving me, and you have also got tuberculosis because so many years, so much close way you are serving me. You have also got 100% tuberculosis. Now, if you die out of tuberculosis, then what will the future history tell? That a disciple, a child of Holy Mother, destroyed the life of a brahmachari just for his personal service. I have finished my life. What about your life? You are just a budding brahmachari, a sadhaka. And I don't want to go down the history telling that I have destroyed the life of a brahmachari because of the small service. So I became very upset. That is the reason I became upset. I was not morose. I was not sad because of death and for my life. I have everything. Mother has given me everything, but I was morose and sad only because that you are going to die. You have got the disease and you will be in trouble. That's why I cried. So I went. I have heard from Ramakrishna that if you cry for 3 days and 3 nights without food, without rest to God, God will give his vision. So I cried and for 3 days and 3 nights without food and without rest for Holy Mother. And the third day, Holy Mother appeared to me, gave the darshan third day, that is today. And she told, my child, why are you crying so much? What is the reason? What do you want? Then I told, Mother, you should give me a boon. What boon do you want, my child? Ask me. Then that fellow, that brahmachari, Salil, he may die out of any other disease, but you should not die out of tuberculosis. You should give me this boon. So mother has come. She's asking, what boon do you want? I'm going to give you. He could have asked for so many other things, liberation, Brahmagnana, or longevity, or even cure from tuberculosis. He didn't ask anything for himself. That old disciple of 90, more than 90, asked that the brahmachari who had served me, he may die out of any other disease, he should not die out of tuberculosis. Mother told, okay, I have given that boon, nothing to worry, don't worry, he will not die out of tuberculosis or any other disease. Then mother went away and he was very happy, and he came out and declared that, and to the wonders of wonders, not only this brahmachari Salil Maharaj, all the symptoms of weight loss and other things, temperature, tuberculosis, started slowly disappearing, and he was coming back to normal health. Even this Swami, Shantanandaji's tuberculosis also got cured and lived for many other years. That's a different thing. And this Swami, Sridharanandaji Maharaj, when he met me, he was 76 or 78 years old at the time. I asked him, Swamiji, what about your health now? He told, I don't have one. He was very hefty, very tall, very fat, maybe more than 100 kgs. Now he may be 95 or 94 kgs in his 96th years. Very tall, very hefty, huge body. Till no BP, no sugar, not even single disease. Whatever I eat, it gets digested, no problem of sleep. Until now, no one disease because of that boon of Holy Mother. Not only I didn't get tuberculosis, I didn't get anything. That is the grace of Guru. That is the grace of great souls, realized souls. The Holy Mother Sharda Devi, the disciple Shantanandaji Maharaj, out of his special love to this child, because he served him, the service of great men will not go a waste. So now he's there still living. If you go to Sydney, you can find him. That Swami is still there. He's more than 96 or 98 or maybe 99 also. He's still healthy, perfectly moving about. He goes to different places, moves about in the plane, aeroplane. He goes to different places and gives lectures. His memory is sharp. His eyesight is sharp. Everything is sharp. So that's what that Holy Mother showed. That the disciple of Holy Mother showed. 3 days and 3 nights he prayed. He cried for God and he got the vision. And here Ramakrishna is telling, if you can feel the anguish, the void of that when you lose your very near and dear ones like wife or husband or child, if you can persist, continue that feeling for God, that I have not vision of God for 24 hours, then God cannot withstand from you. He has to give you dash. But it's very, very difficult to cry for God. That's a different thing. But it's so easy. In Kali Yuga, the Lord has made realization of God very, very, very easy. Because this Annagata Prana. If you do this much, you will get. What can we do? That's the important question. Okay. Now we have ended our discussion with a high note of such beautiful thing. Ramakrishna has told that about sadhana. Now we will end our discussion here with this beautiful thought of the Lord. There in the introduction, it was the Shiva, Lord Vishnu in the Shiva form. Inside Vishnu, outside Shiva, inside Vishnu, outside Shiva, everything, the same thing. We had that beautiful vision of Lord Shiva there. And here we had this wonderful thing. So with this beautiful note, high state of mind, we will continue our sadhana for the next week until we meet. But tomorrow we'll be meeting again and discussing this. It goes on. We'll meditate on this and enjoy. So the pandemic has brought us, though it is a calamity, it has brought an opportunity for us to think of God and go to very high state. So it's a boon in disguise. Let us make use of it. Let us make use of this calamity as an opportunity to rise high in spiritual life. So now it's the time for question and answer, the time for asking any doubts. If you have any doubts, if you have any questions, you can now ask.
Pranam Swamiji.
Pranams.
Yesterday I sent one question, Swamiji. You told me it was not available. The one thing I wanted to know is you always tell me to go inside, pray inside like that. But however I tried, I am not able to do that. I just keep my Guru Maharaj photo on the in front of me and then do the prayer. So can you please clarify me how to go inside like that? That I wanted to ask you.
That itself is going inside, mother. You are keeping the photo of Ramakrishna in front of you, or whichever Ishtadevata you have, you can keep that and pour out your feelings of your heart to him. Open up your heart. That is going inside. You're not telling, showing it off in front of anybody. When nobody is there, in solitude, alone, you open up your heart, whatever feeling you have. If you have any desires, if you have any prayers, everything, just open bare the heart to the Lord. That itself is going inside.
That's what actually I don't even keep the photo of Guru Maharaj, but I will just have that in my mind.
If you have it, the feeling that itself is more than that, mother. It is as good as that. Going inside means taking inside to your heart and opening up your heart and feeling and telling him everything. That's all.
It's really very nice, great master class is really excellent, Samji. I'm just enjoying every day.
That's why it is called great, master. Great. It should be great.
I wish it will be there for all the 6 days. Instead of 4 days, I wish it will be there forever.
Yeah, if it is the will of master, it will happen. But now the will of the master or Holy Mother is that it should happen only for 4 days. Now, whatever we have the opportunity given by Ramakrishna, let us enjoy it.
Yeah, we are not going to Ashrama every day in Bangalore because of this pandemic nuisance. But I'm still seeing Guru Maharaj every day. And your explanation is so good. I'm just enjoying that, Swamiji. Really, it's hats off to that pravachan, and thank you very much, Swamiji.
There was a saying or a message there on the internet that was, now the coronavirus became very arrogant. So the coronavirus went to Lord Krishna and told with arrogance, see, you are called the Lord of the universe. And see, what have I done? I have closed your temples. Nobody goes to your temples. I have closed all your temples, so I am greater than you. Then Lord Krishna told, yeah, you are very greater, but do you know that what has happened? You might have closed all the temples, but I have made every house and every heart a temple.
Yes, that's really true, Swamiji. It is really
every house has become a temple now. Every heart has become a temple. So let us make use of this opportunity. Anything we can convert it into positive and get the benefit.
Yes,
it's in our hands.
Everybody is asking me all the time. You'll be busy in class. When are you free? Because so many wonderful programs are coming on the YouTube. All Ramakrishna Math different centers. Every day there will be some very nice programs, so that we are enjoying, Swamiji. It's really very nice. I'm grateful. Thanks to you, Swamiji.
Yes, Mother. Thanks to Great Master. Thanks to Holy Mother. And thanks to people of here, Johannesburg, the officials who have made this opportunity, but for them, this would have not happened.
Yes, Swamiji, because I'm thankful to them also, Swamiji. Convey my grateful thanks to them. Those who have made these arrangements to display, telecast this through YouTube. It's very nice, Swamiji.
And thanks to Corona Mataji also.
Thank you. Thank you, Swamiji. Pranams, Swamiji.
Okay, Mother. Okay. Pranams. Any other questions? Any other doubts?
Maharaj, Madhu, Maharaj.
Yes, Madhu.
You told me about in this satsang about the bigotry. So within our religion, the Vaishnavas or the believers of Shiva, if they do something, I think somehow as a Hindu we can take it inside. But when some other religions like that terrorism or something happens, which emanates from other religions like Christianity or Mohammedan. So we cannot take that inside that easily because we feel so alienated thinking about the entire religion is so wrong and the people of that religion are so wrong. How to take that also as positive rather than taking it and affecting it negatively?
See, that is the reason why Ramakrishna even practiced Mohammedanism and Christianity and showed that also lead to the same God. The end is the same. But because of the fanatic attitude and the other things they have learned, these things we should not worry, because it is not the thing of that particular god or that religion. It is a thing of the people, the minds of the people. So everywhere, whether you go to India, you go to any other country, good people, bad people, both of them will be there. Even in Hindus, there are so many bad people. You can see in India how they are working against India. Many people, the so-called Indians and Hindus, they are working against Hinduism, against India. So that is there everywhere. So let us now concentrate on realizing God. And if you do sadhana and realize God, then you can do more service to the nation and Hinduism than by simply hating them or keeping things of hatred towards them. You can do more service. You can do more work to Hinduism by going, practicing spiritual practices and praying, doing japa more and offering to the welfare of Hindus and doing work for the Hindus, for the country. That will be a better thing. Whatever we have that energy for the anger, for hatred and other things to the other religions or those people who are doing bad, that energy can be used for positive purposes, serving. So now, like, see, we are going to the Hindu community where poor people are there. We are serving them, giving them food, education, hampers here in Johannesburg. We are serving all the Hindus, the poor Hindus who are here. Not only the Hindus, all other people too, but our focus is on Hindus. Like that, is that energy, we can use it instead of using it for thinking all these things and worrying. That energy also can be used for serving Hindus and our country and the people. That's all. Very simple.
Okay, Maharaj. Thank you.
Yes. Any other question? Any other doubt? Okay. So I will close the session by the prayer. Om Priyatam Pundarikakshaha Sarvayagneshwaro Harihi Tasmin Tushte Jagat Tushtam Prenite Prenitam Jagat Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.